Hello and welcome back to Balance Adventures Behind Bars. This is a quick review of a recent install that I did with the Rade Garage auxiliary fuel tank. And if you stay till the end, I promise to give you a little shortcut that will save you lots of time and keep your bike warranty friendly. So anyway, Rade Garage sends out the tank, strap, fuel hoses, a selector valve, the carbon fiber cap here to accommodate the filler neck, of course the cap and venting lines, and then there's also some other vent hoses that go underneath here that took the place of the old air cleaner housing and venting. So those instructions are great. It's pretty easy to set up. They'll also give you the new air filter housing and foam filter, which probably increases the horsepower, mainly because this is a whole lot less restrictive than the old giant air cleaner housing. It used to be here where the tank now sits. The venting I want to talk to you about here in a second, but I want to talk about the main two reasons I did this. One is KTM 690s with the stock tank of about 3.8 gallons. You should get somewhere a little over 200 miles. And that's calculating it running anywhere between 50 and 60 miles to the gallon. The last time I checked, I got 61.4, and I've been consistently over 60. I don't race the bike. I also don't hot dog it. I'm pretty conservative. I do some highway, some higher speeds, and even for long distances, and I'm still getting that overall, typically over 60. So again, back to one of the main reasons is the range. I'm now slightly over 300, where before I was slightly over 200. It didn't add 100, but it's close to it. Where I live in North Carolina, I'm very remote, not a lot of gas stations, so I typically fill up at home. And so when I'm out and about, running around the mountain trails and mountain roads, I no longer stress about having to find a gas station before heading home, or running out of fuel, or carrying other tanks. I have those liter, forget what they're called, but a couple of tanks. And I could never get them secure enough to feel comfortable. They were always bouncing around no matter how tight I got them in there. And I know there's also other systems, a road tag or whatever that's called. Those are pretty bulky and add a lot of weight up high, no matter how you are able to mount that. This is by far one of the best setups that I've found for auxiliary fuel. I'm dropping all my stuff here. There are other, saddle tanks, sit up front on the sides. Those are probably lowering your center point of gravity because they're down pretty low, but they're also adding a lot of weight out to the sides, on both sides. And they have a much more complicated hosing, routing and feed system. So the other reason I went with this is you can't see it. It's under the tank. Under the seat, excuse me. Other than this sticking up, pretty invisible. Keeps the lines the same way as it was before. Does it add a little bit of weight to the front? Yeah, 1.5 gallons worth of weight. What is it, 6 pounds per gallon? Not a whole lot. And because of the way I connected it, which we'll talk about next here, is you're using up this fuel first, versus Rade Garage's instructions and what they supply you with have you tapping into the pump at the bottom of the tank there, and then you add a selector switch that you can choose between front tank, rear tank, and I guess you would, run the back tank down a little bit, then the front. Anyway, my setup, you're going to be using the front tank first, and then it'll default to the rear tank. And so here's what I did. I found another guy that did the same thing on YouTube, and I did a little more research on the venting and the fuel feed and so forth and so on, and experimented a little bit before I finally made the final commitment. And what I did was the fuel feed line from underneath the tank, I routed it underneath and along here, and then tapped into the vent line of the fuel tank. There's a fuel vent line or nipple right here, and so your line comes out to here. Here's the factory connection right there. I just tapped into it with this inline fitting, one clamp. This side's plenty tight, didn't need anything. I can reverse this quickly to keep the warranty happy. There's no other modifications, and we'll talk about the venting here in just a second. So this is super easy and quick install, and obviously the reversal would be just as quick. But I also found another, well, here, how it works is you still got the venting here, and I'll talk about that connection shortly. So as the rear tank, as a pump draws fuel from the rear tank, it creates a vacuum. This cap is sealed 100%. It draws a vacuum on the rear tank because it's no longer vented the way it was meant to before. So it draws fuel from the auxiliary tank. Once that's depleted, then she just starts drawing from the tank, the rear tank, the 3.8 gallons. And then the feed line then just becomes a vent line. So that's pretty easy. And I've been using this for a while and have had zero fuel delivery or fuel starvation problems, no leaks. So super easy install, works fine. The only thing you don't have is the option of running one or the other. With this particular setup, you're always going to run the front tank down first before using the rear tank. I suppose if you loosened up the cap, you probably could draw the rear tank down. Let's say you had a problem, you mistakenly put some bad fuel in here and noticed it right away. I suppose you could just loosen up the cap and it probably wouldn't draw the fuel from here and then draw from the rear, but hey, that's theoretical anyway. But where was I going with this? Oh, the other positive thing I've noticed is, and I'm sure other people have experienced this, whenever you fill up the rear tank, if you happen to add too much fuel and she's out in the sun and in the heat, you get the thermal expansion of the fuel, and of course it's supposed to vent forward to the vapor canister. And so what was happening before is I was getting fuel being sent up here, and I'd have fuel leaking out of my vapor canister instead of the fuel being vented out. Since I've added this auxiliary fuel tank, I have not had one spillage of fuel because of that. Still don't fill this up completely. I do leave a little bit, but even if I did, it's not a big problem. It would vent accordingly. This now becomes a fuel expansion reservoir slash, vapor routing. So as this draws down, if for whatever reason, you get some fuel expansion back here, it's just going to push the fuel over to here. When I fill up, I typically do take the seat off just so that I can watch. I mean, I've watched it through here, but typically I'm filling her up to right about here, which may only be about a cup or so until she reaches there. And that's not been a problem. It still has enough room for that fuel expansion. And I've not had any spills, as I said, since I installed this auxiliary tank. So you get the range, ease of installation. If you go with the shortcut here, you keep the bike warranty friendly because this can be easily connected back to the original. And as I said, the venting. So Rade Garage has you route this hose down, and then the stock hose would be connected here, and they have you splice into it with a T. And so you would have the tank vent come on down and vent directly to the vapor canister along with the rear vent. So my stock hose is tucked away up in there. So that would be easy to swap out and put it back to factory. I don't think this really harms anything. If there's any engineers out there that want to comment and tell me what I'm doing wrong with this setup, but I I'm in the automotive business, have been all my life, and anyway, don't see any issues with this. I'm actually giving it a better way to vent and an easier way to deal with the vapor expansion or the fuel expansion at the rear tank, which, as we all know, this is a big giant plastic tank back here, and if you put too much pressure on it, she's going to expand. We already have the problem with ethanol in our fuel. Can't be too very friendly on the plastic. So anything you do to make it easier for that fuel to expand and a way for it to go somewhere without spilling it out your vapor canister, it's got to be a great thing for the bike, long term anyway. I do want to talk about the fuel range. As I said, I'm getting 50 to 60, so that puts me slightly over the 300. What are you getting? Anybody else that's got the Rade Garage setup, even if you did it with the selector valve and the hose and all that, I'm curious to see what other people are getting range-wise. When I was doing the research for additional fuel, I really didn't find anybody talking about the fuel range. Yeah, okay, everybody talked about the 1.5 gallons, but I was curious to see what other people were really getting in the real world. I haven't really pushed it to 300 miles. I do plan on doing that. Yes, I will carry some additional fuel just in case, just for experimenting. I want to see me get that 300 plus that I'm theorizing. Anyway, if there's anybody out there with any additional information about this setup or the original setup and talk about the range, please comment below. If you got any questions, comment and I'll try to answer them best possible. If you see my channel, I do a lot of rides and a lot of different mod videos and accessories, and I'll continue to do more as I continue to do. Future mods on this will be a bash plate or skid plate, some fueling type program probably. I have a fuel dongo now, which is accommodating quite well the less restrictive air cleaner I now have and the slip-on exhaust that I have. Probably, I haven't measured it, it's probably still a tad lean. But anyway, without some kind of program, fueling program, I'm not going to get that corrected. So I'm doing the research on that, and I'll definitely post a video about that. The bike is getting extremely close to where I had envisioned the perfect adventure bike for me. I have a big trip that I'm planning now. It's very early stages, but I plan to do the Trans-America trip from coast to coast, touch the Atlantic, touch the Pacific, and then actually come back. It'll be 2 different routes. It won't be just highway. We'll try to hit some of the nicer, more scenic routes, and should be a lot of content on that one. If you're interested and live on the East Coast or not, and you're interested, shoot me a comment as well. Reach out to me. Again, we're in the early stages of planning. There's a lot of people that have already done it, so there's a lot of suggested routes out there. We'll just probably work off of that and tweak them as we see fit. I'm looking at a group of maybe 6 to 8 like-minded adventure riders, and we're probably just going to stay on the roads. I don't think we're going to do any BDRs or anything like that. My wife and I travel via a motorhome most of the year, probably 6 to 8 months out of the year. And so I'll be doing some content on BDRs as well, especially the ones out towards the west. We love it out there. Utah, Montana, Idaho, and actually Washington. This next trip we're going to be going across Texas and then up into California and then Washington, and then we'll loop around and come back through the major parks there and maybe even hit the Badlands. And so I plan on doing a lot of the ride videos up there through a lot of those trails and some of the BDR sections. Well, I can't think of anything else. Again, love you guys. Thanks for supporting the channel by watching. Please do like and subscribe if you haven't already. And you're welcome to watch, obviously, the other videos. I have 2 install or mods videos. The first one is more from the beginning, and then I just recently posted up an update on what I've done in the last 30 to 45 days. So yeah, thanks guys. I'll see you back here, and until then, hopefully I'll run into you somewhere out on the trail. Take care, folks.